Hello, everyone. This is FIDE Master Viktor Neustroyev. Thank you for coming to the webinar today. We are going to talk about Albin-Blackburne Gambit. But before we proceed with this new topic, this gambit that you can play in your rapid or blitz games, we will talk about the homework. There was a homework that I provided you with. So last time we were talking about mistakes which appear in exchanges. When we calculate the exchanges, we have to calculate properly. Otherwise, we can face with some problems and we can make a mistake, which we can call a miscalculation. Okay, by the way, guys, I was trying to connect my new camera, but it didn't work successfully. If anybody knows what should I do, so I'm using Windows now, and my camera is called Insta360 Link. This is the newest camera that I have. So currently it's connected, but it doesn't work, and my computer doesn't see it, and I don't know why. So if you have any ideas of how to connect it, please let me know, because the quality of this camera will be much, much better. I even think that the quality of this camera is good enough. The current one, it's full HD, so it should be fine. But the newest one is really perfect. By the way, can you please let me know whether you can see the screen, you can see the position I'm sharing, and also if the sound is good? Okay, so let me open a chat here. I see the screen, the sound is good. Thank you, Michael. And if there is anyone who attends the webinar for the first time, could you please let me know what's your rating is and which country you are from? So, guys, it's possible when if from time to time you unmute yourself and you can ask questions, especially when I ask what you should play here or there. Okay, that was the homework. Let's start with this. And in this homework, the question was, well, Black decided to exchange on d3, and your task was to realize whether this is a mistake. Thanks for all who sent the answers. So I've replied you. Yeah, this is definitely a mistake. Well, by doing this move, Black wanted white to capture here. So they thought that the knight is hanging. So probably knight e7, queen e7. And Black is fine with it. Or maybe queen d3, and Black also thinks that this is a good position. But they missed that instead of taking this knight, it's possible to play queen g4, creating a threat. Actually, two threats. What are they? One is queen g7, and the other one is this discovered attack. So, for example, g6 to defend the position against a checkmate, but simply knight h6, and then you win a queen. Well, the knight can capture here, but then queen e7. This knight is hanging too, but, well, this probably we can play better. We can first capture this knight, and if they take this, we take here. This is better. Okay, and the second one is this. So here the question was, what's wrong with knight takes b6? Okay, guys, who also thinks who also sees the same problem? Once I move pieces, you don't see the board. So let me double check how it works. No. It does work because yes, it does work. It should be fine. So do you see that I was making moves on the board? Because Michael tells there is a technical issue. I want to make sure that everything works. So Michael doesn't see the board. Okay, Michael, can you please re-enter? Maybe this will work. Yeah, thank you, guys. So, well, yeah, it seems to be working. So probably on Michael's end, there is a problem. Okay, perfect. Uh-huh. Okay. The problem is that I don't have so many boards, but I can try. Okay. Okay, perfect. So, well, let me just, no, okay, let's continue with the homework number 2. So the question was, what's wrong with knight b6? Any suggestions, guys? Yeah, thanks, John. Yes, it's knight c3 with a strong counterplay. So knight b6. And the key idea, well, the white wanted what? Oh, the white wanted this. So, for example, knight b6 or pawn takes b6, and they wanted to take on c6. They thought that with such a combination, they win a pawn. But the problem is that there is no need to capture this knight right away. Instead, black may play knight c3, threaten on e2, and also blocking the c file. So now let's say bishop f1 defending here, and simply a takes b6, and white lost a piece for free, just for a one pawn. If let's say knight a8, knight e2, king f1, knight c1, rook c1, then here black is completely winning. So it's now queen versus rook and the knight. I'm just looking if there is a possibility to trap this knight, or should we capture it right away? Probably we should start with this move instead. This move protects here as well as attacks here, and we're also attacking the knight. Yes, I think this works really well. So even after rook d3, we can do this, and it seems to be okay because there is no counterplay. Because let's say let's say they play what? Now rook c6, queen c6, knight e5, then it's queen c1, which leads to a checkmate. If they play knight e5 right away, then knight takes e5, and this rook is hanging. If they play knight d4, then it's still knight d4, and after this move, it's bishop e2. If this move is played, okay, then you still take, they take there, but it should be a winning position because you have queen versus rook. Okay, fine. So let's now start our topic today. I'm going to talk about Albin, Albin, yeah, Albin Blackburne Gambit. So because there is also this gambit. Let me show you. Bishop c4, knight d4, sacrificing the pawn on e5. And this gambit is called Blackburne Caustic Gambit. And I'm not going to talk about this opening. However, you guys probably should know how to defeat this strategy. So you take here this, and then you play c3. And after they take on c3, you play knight takes, and then d4. So you dominate in the center. If instead you decide to capture on e5, you can get into trouble because queen g5 attacks both. And if you continue with knight f7, you may lose a lot. So bishop e2, let's say, and then knight f3 checkmate. So this is a very common trap. So if knight d4 is played against you, make sure to play either c3 or take here. If after c3 they try to defend, you even have a nice counter attack with king f7 and queen to h5, winning the bishop back. Okay, but we are not going to talk about this opening today. We are going to talk about this line, bishop g4. And, what? White definitely takes on e5. This is the best option. Everyone plays it. So I'm looking at the statistics. 95% here captures on e5. Because this move makes a lot of sense. And are you guys familiar with the so-called opera game? Okay, you're unfamiliar? Okay. Let me show you. Let me show you because, in the opera game was played against Paul Murphy and the Duke of something. I don't remember his name, but it was Paul Murphy playing with white pieces. So let me flip the board. Paul Murphy was playing white. And the game here continued. Here the main idea is that after this, white wins a pawn because they unpin. So that's why here black decided to take on f3. Queen takes f3, d takes f5. White plays bishop c4, threatening the mate and developing the bishop, of course. Knight f6 blocking it. And here white initiates a double attack. How would you initiate a double attack? Can you suggest a move for white? I'm asking those who are unfamiliar with the opera game, because if you guys remember the game, you know what Paul Murphy played then. And while you're trying to answer, I'll try to connect my camera. Maybe it can be connected. Oh, yes, it can be connected, but only directly to my MacBook. So it shows setting up a device. Okay, so queen b3. Queen b3, double attack, right? So queen e7, because f7 pawn is more important. After bishop f7, there is queen e6 threat. That's why the queen has to cover it. And this is where Paul Murphy should capture on b7, but he didn't. Instead, he developed the knight. Well, however, this then queen b4 is the best move, and take, then maybe c3 or just bishop d2, and after bishop takes, knight takes, and the e4 is protected. Well, e4 isn't hanging actually because of bishop d5 too, so white ends with extra pawn. But Paul Murphy decided to develop pieces. c6 protecting here, bishop g5 creating a pin. So I'm actually showing this game at one of my first lessons to illustrate the concept of pins, because pins are quite important, especially at among lower rated club players. I mean, well, not complete beginners, but beginners. So b5, and Paul Murphy sacrifices, forcing the knight to block, after which he castles, but black defends. Can you guess the next move of Paul Murphy? Okay, so the camera is working, everything is green. I don't know how can I change it, but okay, so the camera should, well, I don't know if it's better. What do you think, guys? In my opinion, it's similar. Let me slightly change the color. Yeah, like that. This camera also should follow my uh, face. So if I move face, it should follow me. No, it doesn't work. Okay, probably not in Zoom, probably in other applications. Ah, there is a sign that I should make. Okay, anyway, so I'm waiting for your suggestions. So the camera settings are not so important for us today. Uh, this this position. So what do you think? How to bring more pieces? Okay, thank you, Paul. Anybody else wants to suggest anything? Okay, so it's rook d7. Why this works? It works because with this move, we want to bring the other rook to the game. So rook takes d7 because the knight is pinned the rook d1. And now we are threatening to take here and win the queen. So what happens? Queen e6. And this is where, yeah, this is where white checkmates. What do you think? What is the next move? So it's bishop d7, knight takes d7, and queen d8. And then rook d8 is a checkmate. And after that, this checkmate started. After this checkmate was called opera mate. Okay, so this is what happened in that game. However, let's continue. I suggest you, instead of taking on f3, which doesn't work, which provides white with a better position, here I suggest you to continue with knight d7 and sacrifice on d6. How does it work? So they definitely take on d6 because what else they can do? They are not likely to lose this pawn. If they play this, you can capture with the bishop, it's fine. So bishop takes d6, bishop e2, and knight gf6, or it's possible to play queen e7. Here I'm going to demonstrate a few games here. Well, Then bishop g5 was played, and this move is not aggressive. So I am talking about the game played between two strong club players. Well, they are about 16 or 1700 rated. This is their FIDE rating. And at this level, such a strategy works really well. So this Albin-Blackburne Gambit is a very good tool against such players. But I think it's unlikely to work in a standard game against someone who is 2000 or higher, because they can find the answer or the way how to punish you during the game. Maybe they won't win the game immediately, but they are likely to achieve some opening advantage. However, for blitz and rapid, it works well. So you can use this opening as a secret weapon and apply it from time to time. So before making bishop g5 on the board, let's discuss which moves you may see in real games. Knight c3, but the main one is knight d4. And well, I have a database with the games of masters. And here, 3 people played knight c3, and only one played knight d4, which is the best move. So knight d4 is definitely the best. We are going to talk about it later, but first let's discuss such moves like bishop g5. Well, bishop g5, well, here the best reaction should be h6. And if they take here, queen takes, attacking here, and also you're threatening with knight e5 at a certain moment. For example, if queen d4, you can suggest even bishop e5. Knight takes, it is a must. Knight takes, and you threaten with a discovered attack. So they have to play this move. You go there, b2 becomes vulnerable. So if they play c3, then you take, and the king has to move. If they take there, then they lose a rook, and you definitely have a compensation. Well, you definitely have material advantage here, and white has some compensation. So it works well. If the bishop doesn't take, let's say the bishop goes to h4, then g5. Bishop g3, you take on g3, and then you win a pawn back. If he does queen d4, attacking both, just knight df6, and the material is equal. And your pieces are slightly better developed. So this is what everyone can dream when he plays with black pieces. So instead, h6, well, black didn't find h6, they played queen e7. Queen e7, knight c3, and the key idea of this opening is that we don't have the d6 pawn, and that's why we may attack the enemy queen through the d file with our rook. So, castle. Well, this is a mistake too. The best option was knight d4. Bishop e2, queen takes e2, and bishop b4. At least they could escape with the queen from the d file, but they still experience issues, and well, according to the engine, white is just slightly better here. However, just one simple mistake provides black with advantage. Well, black already holds initiative, so the white's task is to stop it. In the game, the white castled, so they played naturally. What do you think how black should continue this time? Yeah, thanks, John. You can message me, you can send it as a private message, but you are absolutely right. It's bishop takes f3, bishop takes bishop. This is what happened in the game, and they simply blundered this double attack. And so in 10 moves, the game was over. Well, of course, they may capture with the g pawn, and that makes a lot of difference. If now queen e5, it's f4, which is unfavorable for black. Also, e5 is coming. That's why if g takes f3, you have to play something else. But even if you just play c6 to stop the knight, you can later develop the attack on that on the king side. So it still looks promising. There is pressure through the d file. There is an idea of h6 g5 opening the g file to attack the king, for example. So it seems that it doesn't count that I mean, you do not feel it that black is down a pawn here. They definitely have a clear play and a strong compensation. Okay, fine. Let's continue. So here the game was over just in a few moves. What you should remember. So queen e7 with the idea to castle and knight gf6 to pressure e4. Now let's take a look at the next example that I prepared. This time black decided to play queen e7 first. So again, knight d4 should be played. So for example, knight d4 is the best move. And then what? If you take there, it's f3. So you have to take on e2, queen takes e2, and this is the only line where white is better. White has advantage. White has a extra pawn, and black doesn't have a compensation. So if they play knight d4, then you should assume that well, your position is worse, but you can still keep playing it. I'm going to show you later how exactly. So in the game, it was castle, which is natural too. So queen e4 is a mistake because black pieces are not developed well. It can be h3. Well, and if you take, then b7 is hanging. If you do not take, then after knight c3, they sacrifice the pawn back, but they definitely are ahead in the development and they can capitalize on it. So that's why here just knight gf6 attacking e4, rook e1. Can you guess the next move of black? I just want to make sure that you understand the concept of Albin-Blackburne counter of Albin-Blackburne Gambit. So let me pronounce it properly. So waiting for your suggestions. What do we have to play now? Okay, so bishop takes, and then queen e5. Looks interesting, but they just play g3. How do you continue? Do you have to play h5, but then bishop f4, and they simplify exchanging the bishops? I can make these moves on the board. It's not a good idea. g3, so, and if you play h5 to play something like that, then this move. Maybe this time you have queen b2. Okay, but they have e5. And then after you take the rook, you are in trouble. Well, maybe knight e5 works. So bishop takes, bishop, and just c3. Queen e1, rook e5. Okay, so maybe I was too optimistic with this move. Let me first play knight c3 and bishop f4 next. Then it's g5. Okay, so, okay, then I have knight d2 instead and knight c4. So it looks fine for white. So it's not bishop f3, anything else? What's the main concept? Okay, so the main concept is to attack through the D file. Castle. Then what? Well, we are threatening with this, then queen e5, or maybe this, and then bishop h2. Well, the game should continue with this move. Then let's say knight rook h to e8, and well, black definitely has initiative here. Instead, in the game, white wanted to simplify by securing the e2 square for the queen. What would you play now? Because bishop e2, queen e2 is definitely what white wants. What you can do instead here? Should we play queen e5 right now? What do you think? Well, it's not queen e5. Okay, if it's not queen e5, then how to take advantage of this? Okay, so it's actually knight e5. It's not, well, queen e5 doesn't work because of, well, f4. Yeah, f4 is fine too, but bishop g4 and queen h2 is not a checkmate. And then if you want to capture this knight, you have to force the king to go there. But once the king goes there, your queen becomes hanging. So you cannot take on g4. You have to move the queen away, and then they probably take on d7 and avoid a checkmate. And also end with extra piece. So not queen e5, but knight e5. No, do not rush. For example, then the game could continue with knight c3, c6, stopping the knight, then bishop f4, then maybe h6. So what now? Bishop f5, let's say bishop f5 attacking the queen. Then bishop g4 with a check. So the king moves. Well, if you take, you just let the queen to go to g4. So king b8 is better. And then after queen e2, you take there and attack here. But they will play g3. However, it's not the end. They cannot chase our bishop away, which is super perfect. And then we can play rook h6, double, and try to pressure here. So if they just, let's say, if they decide to take here, then we do this and we threaten with bishop h2 or any other bishop move which creates a discovered attack. The game continued with h3, and this is what your opponent can definitely play. Well, here white was focused on this. This is what white wanted, to take with the queen and avoid problems on the d file. But they missed something. What did they miss? What you can suggest for black in this position? You see, now the camera is following me. So if I move, it moves too, which is very nice. Okay, bishop b4 is tricky, but bishop d2. Bishop c5, oops, bishop c5 is interesting. Yes, I agree. Well, anything else? H5. Well, I almost agree with you, Michael, because H5 can be played in order to open the G file. But so here you open the G file at the cost of a piece. Yeah, H6 works better. But let's talk about your moves too. So bishop b4, I don't think it deserves our attention, but this move. So the queen is hanging, and maybe knight d2. Now h6. So bishop c5 is possible, but yeah, but h6 is better. H6 and what? If they take, we take here. If they bring the knight back, then we do this. So knight f7. Queen f7, h takes g4. The knight sacrificed was played not to win a pawn, but because white didn't want h to g5 happen. In such a case, the h file is open, and well, the rook and the queen can deliver a checkmate together. So bishop c5, knight d2, and finally it was a tactical strike with bishop f2. How did it work? Well, if the king takes, it's simply. So, for example, if king e3, it's a checkmate. If king goes to g1, queen f2, king h2. But how would you continue in this position? You are down a piece, but the king is vulnerable. So try to bring more pieces. Okay, so queen h4. Well, okay, queen h4 works. King moves back, and then you do this. This does make sense. I agree. So queen h4, king g1, and knight f2. So the queen is trapped. Very nice. Instead, in the game, it was h5 played because opening the h file means that you win. So, for example, well, g5 or g takes. Well, if g5, then you can win with knight g4. So if the h file is open, it's over. If the king goes there, it's knight g3. If the king goes here, it's queen g3. And if they take, I still think that it's queen h4. Yeah, queen h4 and knight f2 trapping the queen. Okay, fine. So that's why they didn't take, but move the king to h2. Guess the last move? So who can tell me the answer? h5. Thank you, John. Yes, it's h5 with the same ideas. Then white resigned. Well, first of all, it's already losing position. At least we can capture the rook, but we don't want to. Instead, we will focus on the checkmate. So something like, well, king goes there, then we do this. And if they play this move, how can we play? Well, just queen g3 is okay. So we are threatening to take here and checkmate. Also, the queen is hanging and the rook is hanging, so it's terrible position. So you see, well, it doesn't guarantee a win, but it's very easy for white to make a mistake, especially if it's a club player. So that's why you can play it on chess.com when you play blitz or rapid games. Remember these two ideas, knight f6 and queen e7. Okay, the next game I would like to show you. Also, two club players were playing against each other, so the same queen e7, knight b d2. So knight b d2 is very slow. That's why black can simply finish their pieces mobilization. Castle queenside. Knight d4 is still a good idea, but this time there is no advantage. For example, knight h6 to cover f5. Knight goes there, and then knight c5, and they have a problem with this, which you can attack and finally undermine. So that's why white played knight d2, because they wanted knight c4 actually. And after bishop c5, they experience some issues with this. So for example, castle, even knight e5 looks good. But I want to play knight g. Okay, let's do knight g f6 and take with a knight here. Because e5, knight e5 this time. Okay, so that's why bishop c5 works. That's why knight c4 is not a good move, but instead knight to c5 was played. Oh, well, of course, I understand this idea. They want to capture on e4, but I don't want to give up this bishop. So knight fd2, trying to exchange and let the queen to go to e2, but bishop e6. And the best way was to do this. Queen d6, castle, knight e7. And this is where there is a very, very small advantage for white. But instead, white wants to exchange the bishops and get an escape square for the queen. So they want too much, actually. Bishop f4, queen f3 attacking here, bishop h6, and knight e5 was played, which is a mistake. So who can tell me what's wrong with this move, knight e5? Well, it's not such a blunder, but this move causes serious issues. So what do you think? Okay, thank you for your suggestion. Well, yes, I think this strategy does make sense. So bishop d2. Or actually, no, you first start with rook d2. Well, maybe they can do this move, I don't know. Because there is a pin. So their queen is protecting on f7. But the idea was if they take, we take, they take, and this is definitely a winning position. But they can take on f7, so it doesn't work so well. Just knight f6, you're attacking here. They are forced to exchange. And after that, the queen takes and they lose on e4, and then the position is open, but your pieces are better coordinated. So knight d3, for example, bishop takes, bishop, and you simply take there. And if they take on c5, you take on d2. Well, not this, but rook h e8. Taking with the rook. This is a better position. So why it's better? Because you're about to play this move. So rook d1 is a blunder because you can take on e6 and they lose a rook. And once you take here, you will be able to enter the enemy territory. So the endgame should be winning. Well, in the game, queen e6 wasn't played. For some reason, they decided to take with the pawn, and they continued with queen a3, threatening to take on a7. Here, I think everyone would play this move, but black played the better move. Can you please suggest it? Who knows? So a lot of chess players here would play king b8, but instead there is a move which attacks and defends at the same time. I want you to find which. No suggestions? Okay. So it was rook d4. What does this move do? So first of all, it attacks the pawn on e4 with another piece. And we are threatening to do this and take this knight for free. And second happened in the game. Queen a7, threatening for a checkmate. But then after rook a4, the queen is simply trapped. And but well, if they didn't play queen a7, the position is still good for black. So black has very slight advantage here. For example, that was the best move. Then you can take on e4, then this, you take, then pawn takes, ruining the pawn structure. So it looks quite well. Just a6 or king b8 maybe. No, a6 has b5 in mind, so that's why I think it's better. Okay, so this time it was knight bd2 played, after which you stick to the same ideas, but you'd better keep the dark squared bishop alive. And then try to gain the pawn on e4. Let's continue with the next example. Okay, this time white does his best and plays knight d4. This is obviously the best move. After which white is likely to obtain advantage. But the position is still sharp and they can make a mistake. So why this gambit is not played worldwide? Mainly because strong players know that knight d4 provides white with a better position, and they are able to come up with this move even if they don't know the line exactly. Then if white defends their position accurately, they end with a small but stable advantage. However, in the blitz and rapid games, this opening is played very often. And against club players, it's also played quite often. So what then? h5. Kind of a risky move, but deserves our attention. So we are threatening to open the h file and attack h2. Well, what white should continue here? They shouldn't capture. They did, but they shouldn't. Knight c3. Knight c3, then you can castle, for example, or you can continue with knight df6, and after f3, well, you can consider a sacrifice at least. So, for example, this, you do that, they do this, and then you win the material back, and they have some issues with the e4 pawn and with the king too. So you have to analyze this position on your own if you play, if you want to play this gambit. But even if you just castle, it looks fine. The game continued with bishop g4, which was a kind of inaccuracy, h takes g4 and queen takes g4. And just this move would provide white with advantage, or black with some advantage. Queen e2, bishop c5, c3, queen e5, and we are threatening with this. So g3, and here you can just transpose the game to the endgame where you are pawned down, but you have a compensation. Look at how your pieces are already developed. And h2 is a weakness. They have to play h4, and if they do so, then g5 may work. Or here instead you can castle. f3, knight h5 with this sharp continuation, because it's hard for them to not blunder. They have to play this, but every time you're ready to play f5. And right now you're ready to play knight g3 actually. So they have first to defend against this by playing maybe rook g1, which is a very specific move. So according to the engine, black has compensation for the pawn, and they can also win the pawn at the very next move with this. So looks like it's quite promising to play this gambit. If your opponent makes a mistake, you are much better and you have good chances to win with black pieces. But if he plays properly, there are still some chances for you to get enough initiative as a compensation for the pawn. Here the game continued with rook h4, which is interesting, but well, it's better to play here, and after this move, just bishop e3, and then attack this rook later with knight e3 or something like that. However, in the game, instead of queen e2, white were too greedy and took this, threatening to take on e4 as well as to play bishop e5. Bishop e3, and after bishop e5, they resign because the queen is trapped. Instead, they'd better continue with queen g5. Well, okay, let me show you. Bishop e3, bishop e5, then queen g5, we play bishop f6. Queen goes to g3. Then what? Then we take on d4, then do this, and then this position just knight h6, knight f5. So it looks like the queen is not actually trapped, and we should take advantage of this compensation. So queen g5, f6 doesn't work because there is a rook hanging. So okay, so white resigned, but actually this position is only slightly better for black, and black would have to play this. Castle, for example, rook g4, there is a really strong attack. So according to the engine, black is better, but black is 2 pawns behind. So it tells us that the attack is actually quite strong. Okay, fine. So in this case, it was knight d4 played, after which you played h5. And probably the last game before we continue to to our next stage. This is where even a 2200 player was unable to withstand against this opening. So knight c3, knight gf6, bishop g5, queen e7, bishop e2. So again, h6, g5 is better. This is what we discussed in the very first game. Castle instead was played, and then white plays knight d4. So looks like he knows what he's doing. Bishop takes, and queen e5, double attacking pieces. Knight goes back, queen e5. Well, in this game, white played well, but still made a mistake. Castle, the white's position seemed to be okay. Knight e5. Well, if they take it, queen takes, and after f4. So what happens after f4? Looks like you have to retreat with the queen, and after e5, play bishop c5. So f4 was quite possible. Or just taking here and doing this was possible. However, in the game, it was knight d4 back. Knight eg4. So this and these are two pieces hanging. It's knight f5, and they have to sacrifice the pawn back, but well, there is this problem, bishop f6, after which the other knight is hanging. King h1, bishop goes back to e5. Knight d5. So white has a very small compensation because of their pieces activity. And now black makes a critical mistake. Instead, they could play better. So what would you suggest for black in this position? Okay, so this time I agree. I agree with Michael. It's h6. h6 should be played. What happens then? So, for example, if bishop takes, knight takes f6, and if f4, then knight takes d5. So they take here, and well, we have a knight hanging, but we can play knight b4, and e5 is lost. So g7 is lost too, but then the knight becomes the object of the attack, and this king is too vulnerable. So h6 was definitely the best. If they just retreat, for example, there, g5, bishop g3, and we can just take on g3 and then take on d5. Instead, it was knight d5 played, and this was a mistake. So because of bishop d8, this is where black made a mistake in calculation. So rook takes d8, e takes d5. Well, again, e takes d5 doesn't look so good. Instead, queen g4 is better because with queen g4, they create a discovered attack. For example, knight f6. And in this position, well, you can do queen g7 if you want, but there is this move, which makes the queen not hanging because of knight e7 idea. And then white should be winning. If white played like that, they should be winning. But they took on d5, and they are just better. Well, h5 should be played in order to defend the knight, and potentially you can open the file, but instead black wanted to bring the queen to the attack. That was a critical mistake. Now c4 protecting here and breaking the connection. Now it's hard to bring the queen to the king side. h5, f3. Rook h8 to get the counterplay. So for example, take, king g1, then queen c5 or queen b6. Queen b6 is better. Then knight e3, and maybe this is the move, but then the king escapes. So maybe g3 first. But if g3 is played, it's queen g4, king goes back, and now the rooks protect here. And every time queen h6 is played, it's possible to continue with queen h3. So let's say queen h6, queen h3. And if they move the queen, it's queen takes h8, actually. Okay, so let's go back. So rook h8, and this is where it was better to continue with rook a e1 or g3 to get the king, to let the king to escape, but instead it was rook a d1. So this is definitely a wrong file. And then g6, chasing the knight away. So instead of moving the knight, it should be f4. After which the knight can go to g3 and defend the king's position. But in the game, the knight went to e3. And bishop g3 was played, because now you just play queen e7, queen h4, and queen h2, checkmate. So, for example, if f takes, it's simply queen e7. If knight takes, it's h takes g4 first, and then queen e7, or actually maybe queen e8, with queen h6 at the very next move. And if, for example, queen e3 to cover h6, how would you win in this position? Who can tell me? Okay, yeah, thank you. It's rook h1, king takes, queen h8, then queen h2 mate. Right. So, well, they played another mistake. They just didn't realize that queen h4 is a problem. And then after queen e7, they did realize, but it was too late. Rook d3 doesn't make sense. After queen h4, it's over. But it's hard to suggest a move, so even this doesn't make any sense. This is how the game ended. So rook d3, queen h4, and that's it. Well, white did play knight d4, and white, well, not here. So where? Here. And white did obtain some advantage, but even after that, the position was too sharp and too complex, and black had some pressure, which provoked white to make a mistake. If I were white, I'm sure I would withstand this pressure, and, well, not sure that I would win 100%, but I'm sure that I could, and maybe I would probably win at least 70% of my games here with white. But then but it's me, so I'm almost 2300 player. If you're playing against someone from 12 to 1800, they may make a lot of mistakes. So that's why at this level, this opening is quite playable. And it's also playable at all levels in blitz or rapid games. So this is what we are going to practice actually now. But before we continue, so I want to remind that if you want to support my webinars and support my work, you can use this link to send a donation. Thanks a lot for everyone who already donated. So it's easy. You click this button, then a pop-up window appears. You enter the amount you want to donate. Click PayPal. Then you open your PayPal account, and this money is automatically sent to my PayPal account. I would appreciate your donations. So it helps to coordinate my work much better. And because of that, I'm able to prepare the content for the webinars faster. And I already have contents for 2 more webinars. And by the way, guys, well, so you can suggest topics for the webinars, especially those of you who send donations. If you want me to cover something specific, please send me a message. You can also send me a message at Tricks of Chess tricks of chess at gmail.com. So and then I can cover this topic on my next webinar. So actually, I always listen to my students, my subscribers, and I would like to cover what they think they need to improve in chess. What we are going to do now, we are going to play the game. So I'm transferring to chess.com. And before we start, which position are we going to play? Well, this one. This one that I sent in the chat. You're gonna play with black pieces. I will play it as white. So who wants to play? Please let me know your username. So I'm sure Parallax wants to play. So 15 plus 10. So this, I'm playing with white pieces, and your task is to try this gambit. X chess X G O. Okay. So the challenge is sent. Please accept it. Okay, perfect. So it's my move. I play bishop e2 in this position. I'm going to practice weird moves. I mean, not only the ones that we covered today. So make sure to make the next few moves within 1 minute, I think. Okay, knight f6. So in my opinion, the most logical is knight c3, but now I know that knight d4 works. So let me try this time h3. Okay, now a new game. Oops. So custom. Okay, Parallax this challenge too. Please accept this challenge. Who else wants to play? Just let me know. Tell me your username. Okay, so bishop e2 I think is a must. So here this move was played, and then knight c3 should be fine. So I want to try something else here. Okay, let me try knight fd2. So 2 games, anybody else? By the way, guys, there will be no webinar next Sunday because this is my wife's birthday, and we are going to have a trip. We are going to Mendoza, which is a region of well, it's a town in Argentina. So we are going just for a few days there to have some excursions to look for wineries, how wines are made in Argentina. So that's why no this weekend, but definitely there will be a webinar the weekend after. So h5. Yeah, thanks. So okay, I want to try f3. Bishop c5. Well, bishop of c5 definitely does make sense. So let me castle. Okay. Uh-huh. Knight c3. Rook g8. Okay, yes, I understand the logic of this move. It's well, you want to do this. Okay, what I can do here? Well, let me play e5. Yeah, before okay, c6. Maybe I should answer right away. Yeah, maybe knight b3 works. Knight b3, queen to c7, attacking h here. Knight c4. Okay, knight c4 should work. Okay, games, new game, custom. Okay, the challenge is set. Okay, you does not match the member's current match settings. Okay, I don't know. You probably should adjust your settings. I'll send you a challenge once again. Yes. So send it to me. Here, knight d5. Well, I don't understand the point. What if I just take on d5? Yes, I see your username, but you should adjust your settings. I cannot challenge you for some reason. Maybe you don't accept challenges because you are not in my friend list, so you should friend me first. This is my profile, for example. So send me a friend request, and maybe after that I'll be able to challenge you. Okay, so bishop b4. What does this move do? Well, I want to play knight d6. I really want to play knight d6, but then it can be king e7. So knight d6, king e7. How should I play then? Bishop f4 is interesting, right? Or I can play bishop f4 right away. Or bishop e3. Well, let me play this move. Bishop h3. Take with my pawn. Okay, I'll try to challenge you once again. Okay, the challenge is sent once again. Please accept it. No, it doesn't work. Okay, you want to try. So bishop g5 maybe. Okay, let's just retreat with a knight. No, I still cannot change you because I don't know. Well, because it doesn't match your current match settings. So you should change settings of your incoming challenges. Yes, incoming challenges. Okay, so I want a castle, but I don't want to get this. So that's why let me play a3. Bishop to e7. Well, then knight d6 may work. Yeah, I was expecting to see this move happening. Bishop b3. Now maybe queen d4 works. What do you think? Well, this isn't a problem. I have bishop g3. g5 is likely to be played soon. Mm-hmm. But g5 isn't so big problem, so let me play this. Now I take with my queen. I want to exchange the queens and then just realize my material advantage. +15+10, but no, this is a standard one. I don't want to play standard one. Actually, it's a candidate master. Very nice. So, let me do. Okay, last time. Okay, no, it doesn't work. So, sorry. And you are offering what? Oops. So g5 was played. Well, but then I think I can play e6 here. And d6 will help me a lot. Castle. Well, castle is a good idea. Definitely. Well, not sure if I can play queen b4 here. Probably not, because queen f6 and this pawn blunders this move. Well, actually, the bishop is hanging too, so I need to castle here. Well, this should be okay. Rook e8. Well, very nice. Okay, what we have? I'm still one pawn up. I have a bishop pair, but I cannot convert this bishop pair. So rook fd1 or rook ad1. Let's do rook fd1. So here I take. I'm also taking the rook, so king king f8 is a must, after which I can probably play what? Bishop c4? Oh, just queen h6. Not because I want to check again. I maybe want to take on g5. It makes me closer to a win. Okay, knight c5, but I think with this move I can simplify the position a lot. I can exchange my bishops because I don't see that they're good at the moment. Then I leave. Well, this bishop is okay. This one isn't so good. Okay, there is no need to exchange the bishops. I can just play queen d6 and exchange the queens. So it seems to be better. So now bishop c4. Well, it seems to be completely winning position. So I have two bishops. And I'm into the attack. So my next moves are rook a1 probably, also queen h5, queen f7. That's why I think I won't experience any issues. Well, this is a tough position, right? And this is where I have to think. But if I exchange the queens, I'm definitely playing for a win. Well, I'm already playing for a win because Black doesn't have a compensation. Black with his knights is able only um, to to stop my threats and prevent me from invading the enemy camp. Mm. Then rook takes rook. And then I can deliver a check, forcing the king to go to h7. What now? This is interesting. Well, I see bishop a5 and rook takes f7, or bishop takes f7, of course. However, bishop f5, knight takes b3, c takes b3, rook takes a5, rook there, rook b5, b4. Oh, it doesn't work, what I'm talking about. Of course I can check it. So why it takes so much time for me to find? Oh yeah, rook a5 is a must, and I take on f7. I'm two pawns up, but well, my pawn structure here is bad, and the knight is well placed. If I could play b4, then yes, it would be easy win. But this is a tough win. Yeah, g6. Yeah, I agree. Can I exchange the rooks? Well, if so, I let my opponent to take the pawns probably. Well, I can play rook d6 here. Because rook g5 doesn't seem like a good idea. Because I have h4. Rook g3, king f2. And what do we have in this game? So black is still thinking. So unfortunately, guys, you didn't fully take advantage of this opening. You didn't develop initiative. Well, in this game, black tried, but at the cost of 2 pieces sacrifice, which is a lot. Well, here, John, unfortunately, well, if we go back, so played too passively. So bishop f5. I'm going to sacrifice this pawn because I think that I can promote. Or maybe I can exchange the rooks. Okay, a5. Oh, does e6 work? e6. No, it doesn't. Okay, let's just defend. And then let's bring the king. I don't see a quick win. Well, here it's over. Yes. Thank you for the game. Well, no, well, we can quickly take a look. So rook g8 is the move I liked. But that was just a knight sacrifice. So maybe knight h5 because g4 seems to be too risky. Yeah, maybe if this move I will play knight g5, taking here and here. But then you have this move. So I take, maybe f takes. It seems to be okay. It's still playable. Okay, here a4. So e6, so what you suggest here? Maybe just bishop here and then e6. Yeah, b5 is logical. Well, for this move, I prepared rook d8. Ah, king e7, unfortunately. Yeah, king e7 is what I missed. Okay, let's go back. I have to use my king. The pawn is poisoned, of course, because of rook e3, but I have to bring my king. Okay, this move. Well, if this move, I can play f5. Uh-huh. So rook g3 should work. Well, rook f3 was a simple move, but then this endgame is winning, but well, the knight is able to block my pawn, so that's why I suggest to keep the rooks on the board. So I'm gonna play rook g7 at the very next move. And because of this move, I think I'm winning. Rook g7 and d7, this is the goal. Okay, so rook g7, king d8. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. It's winning, of course. This is what I had in mind too. So the king goes to d8, attacking my bishop, but then e7 check. I lose my bishop, but can promote by just advancing the pawn further. Well, in case of king d6, I do the same. In case of this move, e7 still works, but I want to do this first. And then e7. Yeah, thank you for the game. So, guys, unfortunately, it wasn't so well as I expected. So let's go back. I don't think that we need to analyze this game. Why? Because you didn't play well. So maybe you should watch the webinar once again, and maybe actually I should somewhere publish these PGNs. What do you think? Do you need PGNs for this? There will be some text annotation too, but mainly I want you to review what we were talking about the webinar on the webinar. So typical ideas. So tomorrow I'm going to send, well, either tomorrow or on Tuesday, because if I will work on PGN, it will take some time. Okay, I also have a homework for you. I'll post it here. Yeah, let me also open it. This is the homework for you, where your task is to suggest a plan for black, and in both cases, at least your task is to get enough initiative. So I want to understand how you learned that black can gain initiative in this opening. Okay, fine. So, well, let's just sum everything up. So this is Albin-Blackburne Gambit, and our key ideas are to attack the pawn and castle, to be able to pressure through the d file. So our next moves can be knight gf6 or queen e7, and then castle. Our main idea is to attack the king, and that's why we should be looking for attacking moves mainly. There is a lot of tactics, especially based on the discovered attack after our king is castled, for example, here. But you should be very accurate. to be able to take advantage of it and calculate it properly. So if you're a good tactical player, then yes, you can definitely play it, especially in the games with a short time control. So for today, we are done. Again, everyone who wants to support, you are welcome. So you can find the link to the PayPal in the chat above. If you have any suggestions, message me at tricksofchess@gmail.com. You can also send me a friend request on chess.com and message me there. No webinar next Sunday, please. Do not forget about it. We skip next Sunday because of my trip. But the webinar in 2 weeks. So the next webinar will be on the 8th of September. I have a few ideas regarding the topic, but if you want to suggest something on your own, you're welcome. Okay, so that's all. See you. I hope to see you soon. Anyway, please expect an email from me with the content of this event. So see you in 2 weeks. Bye bye.